see this. It's
something that'll change the world and human life as we know it.
He knows. He's seen the light.
When Monty talks, it's painful.
Monty, you have been so instrumental in kind of pointing me in the right direction.
It was about looking at your character defects in spirituality.
It's the integration of clinical practices with the 12 steps.
It's an absolute pleasure. He certainly knows a lot of people. He's got a lot of energy, and sometimes when you don't have so much energy, he picks you up and carries you.
Having the Monty Man there certainly helps.
This is one of the places that is about the business of the solution.
The views expressed on this special broadcast of the Take 12 radio show do not necessarily reflect those of KHLT Recovery Broadcasting or its affiliates. KHLT is not affiliated with any particular 12-step fellowship.
Now here's that guy who's getting less popular minute by minute, your host, the Monty-Man.
Welcome, one and all, to another fine episode of the Take 12 Recovery Radio Show. I am your host, the Monty-Man. And we are taking a bit of a break from the rest of the crew this week. Marv R. will not be with us, Tony or Denver or Dave Fleming, but just you and I, well, kind of. Marv and Bruce H., my sponsor, who has gone on to be with the Lord here some time back, we put together a show called the 12-Step Promises, the promises of the 12 steps, because each step has its own set of promises. Now, we're used to reading the promises in many meetings, 12-step meetings, that are on the wall. Those are actually the 9th step promises. But let's not cheat ourselves. There's promises in every single step. And so what I'm going to be doing for the next several weeks is producing and kind of condensing the show that we put together, because we went over, I think, 11 or 12 weeks of this, of researching the promises of every single step. And so what I've done is I've taken out all the promos, all the public service announcements, all the Take 12 trivia, and the hoopara that we do at the beginning of the show and at the ending of the show, and I've just taken the topic and produce that for you, because many of you have written in and wanted to be able to download these. Well, now you can. You can download them from our Podomatic page. You can download them from iTunes. You can listen on iHeart Radio. You can listen in many different platforms. So if you go to take12radio.com and simply click on the listen button, you can download these shows. So you have them, and you can share them and burn copies of them with your friends as well. So for the next several weeks, we're going to be producing these, and they're going to simply be called the promises of step, and then whatever step we're on. So this one is the promises of step 1. So here we go, joining the conversation with myself, Marv R., and my sponsor, Bruce H. Reading from friendsofbillw.net, the introduction of this, it says, many of us have heard of the 9th step promises from page 83 and 84 of the Big Book, 3rd edition, of Alcoholics Anonymous. There are, however, additional promises in the Big Book. The following is a list of approximately 150 promises that I compiled. This is BillW.net, by the way, not the Monty Man. From the 1st edition of the Big Book. Some of the promises are directly associated with completion of a step. Some of the promises are inferred from the experiences of the first 100 men and women who recovered from alcoholism. In either case, I have found it helpful to remember there are promises throughout the Big Book if we just look for them. And so on page 3 of this, and by the way, again, listeners, if you'd like a copy of this, you can download this at www.friendsofbillw.net. These are some of the promises. We may not get through all these today, but these are some of the promises associated with step 1. Listed here, like I said, not necessarily in order of importance or chronological order, but on page 17 it says, nearly all have recovered. It's referring to the first 100 men and women. they have solved the drink problem. There's two promises there. They've recovered, and the drink problem has been solved. I never looked at those as promises before. You know, I read through this stuff over and over again, and I never even considered it. Number 2, let's just do 3 of these. Number 2, but there exists among us a fellowship, a friendliness, and an understanding which is increasingly wonderful. Number 3, the feeling of having shared in a common peril is one element in the powerful cement that binds us. The tremendous fact for every one of us is that we have discovered a common solution. And then it goes on to say, we have a way out on which we can absolutely agree, and upon which we can join in brotherly and harmonious action. This is the great news this book carries to those who suffer from alcoholism. That's on page 17. So there's like 3 promises in that one. The feeling of having shared in a common peril. We have discovered a common solution, and we have a way out. So let's look at those 3. Bruce, you had kind of mentioned something before the show about what you thought was the first promise.
Yeah, that's on page 15.
Okay.
And on page 15, it tells you this. It says, I'll read the whole thing, and then I'll pick the part out that I think is important. It says, for if the alcoholic failed to perfect and enlarge his spiritual life through work and sacrifice for others, he could not survive the certain trials and low spots ahead. If he did not work, he would surely drink again. I think one of the very first promises in the book in step 1 is that if you don't do this thing, you will drink. And I think that what you've read there kind of verifies that down on the bottom of page 17, it talks about we have but 2 alternatives. One's going to the bitter end. The other is to accept his spiritual help. And then this other part about the Creator on page 25 that we're going to get into. You know, but there's 3 places just before that where it talks about the problem. Then you have this new relationship, this spiritual.
So a promise can be one that is not necessarily a pleasant outcome.
You bet.
It is, because we kind of think of promises as, unicorns and rainbows, right?
Yeah. Let's tie it together. We're talking about step 1.
Right.
And what is step 1? You're powerless. And my take on that is this. You're powerless when you're drunk, and you're powerless when you're sober.
Right.
You see.
If you're an alcoholic.
So if you're powerless, what's the end result of that? If you're powerless over alcohol, not if you're an alcoholic, but if you're powerless over alcohol,
right,
you're going to drink again.
Yeah, and that is a promise.
See, that's the point of that, and that's to take that out. And I'm not taking that out of context because on page 44, it agrees with me there, and it talks about the summary of step 1.
Any thoughts, Marv?
Oh, I have thoughts, but
yeah. He's still thinking about controlling that neighbor's dog.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's interesting to me, that second sentence you read, they have solved the drink problem. Okay. But that's the drink problem, period. And I think number 2, where it talks about existing among us a fellowship, a friendliness, and an understanding which is indescribably wonderful, is going to fix the rest of the problem. You see where I'm coming from? When I originally went into AA, I need to take that back. A few months after I went into AA, I decided I was an alcoholic.
Mm-hmm.
Because when I first went in there, there was no way I was going to admit that. And
did you even think you might be, or you just were dead sold against it?
I think I denied it.
Yeah.
Hard-headed.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then even though I'm not a real social person, the sentence in number 2 turned out to be important to me, because through the meetings, especially the understanding part, started helping me on the road to understanding I needed power greater than myself.
Got it. So that's one of the things that when I came, remember I told you guys, I think it was last week or our last show, that there was those two meetings that I attended. The one where the guy was real welcoming, and the other one where they told me to leave because I had a shirt with a fish on it.
Right.
And I gravitated. Where did I gravitate to? Where I was welcomed, obviously. And I had never been faced before by another human being that looked me straight in the eye and basically was saying, "I know you're sick. It's okay. You can stay here." That had never happened before. It was always a confrontational thing. It was always, "What's wrong with you? Why can't you get it together? What were you thinking? All that kind of stuff." I never had somebody say to me, "Yeah, I know." So that was a promise that came true for me. So let's go on. Number 4, there is a solution, page 25. I didn't know that. What a wonderful thing. Now, I didn't know what the solution was yet, but I heard that. I think one of the things where we cheat people is we say there's a solution and then we don't talk about it, right, Bruce?
Something that I want to bring up real quick about there is a solution. What I've discovered for myself, excuse me, a lot of times the big book and other literature talks about stuff like this, the promises and everything, and I don't know if it's just me or what, but it almost seems to me like they're saying right now.
Yeah, doesn't it?
This is going to happen right now.
Yeah.
So, in the part about there is a solution, I would like to say for me that I think that there are parts of solution, but the solution is lifelong. Mm-hmm. It's not going to come right now.
Right.
Because I've been around for a little while, and I'm still stuff comes up, and I'm just kind of beating my head against
and it isn't
the wall.
completely solved
right
yet.
Right.
Yeah,
I think people need to know that this is
it's a process. It's
progress, not perfection, is real. It's progressive, and it will come about, but it's not going to happen today.
Yeah. I agree
for a lot of people.
Yeah.
Yeah, I agree with what Marv's saying. I think that it's a growth process,
right?
And it's probably lifelong. As a matter of fact, I would even step out of that, saying it that way, and say it's going to be a lifelong process. We have to learn to grow and develop. And at one place in the book, it actually talks about perfect and enlarge this spiritual life. And it is a progression to kind of shift from that.
Do you think that one of the reasons it's lifelong is because we have a tendency to repeat the same silly stuff over and over again?
Yeah.
Mm.
We're awful hard-headed.
Yeah.
Even when we're faced with the better road to go down, we go down the other one.
Even in our best moments, we're the author of confusion. That's what it says.
Yeah. We really are.
Yeah,
well, I just think that people who end up in AA, and many that don't, are a lot more broken than what we realize.
Mm.
The idea that something's going to be fixed right now with human beings is way off.
Kind of silly, really, to think about it. Yeah. It's kind of unreasonable.
Yeah.
Because you can almost be guaranteed that no matter who it is that walks through that door, there's probably trauma that's been going on,
abuse,
neglect, Definitely self-will run riot. There's other. It's just not, that there's a drink problem.
Right.
But
before anything can be done, the drink problem has to be solved.
Yeah, because you got to get your head clear.
Yeah.
Number 5 says, but we saw that it really worked in others. And we had come to believe in the hopelessness and the futility of life as we had been living it. Number 6, we had found much of heaven, and we had been rocketed into a fourth dimension of existence of which we had not even dreamed.
I can't relate to that one.
The fourth dimension?
Yeah. I don't.
What do you think the fourth dimension is?
Bruce?
I know, I was just going to say Bruce.
Well, I believe it's growing in this God consciousness and learning to walk and on a spiritual plane.
I think you're right.
That's the lifelong process that we're in, and we're just trying to grow in that. And look, one of the things that we talked about before was learning to look for God's will and the power to carry that out, not our own.
Right.
And darn well, when I pray, even I'm praying for God to join me in my little plans.
Sure.
To come help me,
We even say it sometimes in faith circles. Lord, we invite you. And I always chuckle under my breath. I mean, I understand the heart behind it, but I always kind of I snicker a little bit.
Yeah.
Like he needs an invitation.
It is obviously a matter of the heart, but I'm just saying that as I grew, as I'm I recognize these things, and that I'm actually, even in my prayers, I'm selfish. And I'm trying to direct God, and here I think I'm doing it right. But it's a growth process, like Marv is talking about. I don't beat myself up over them. But see, I'm easily able to talk about that. If somebody's saying, you're even selfish in your prayers, and,
Yeah, yeah.
And when you're praying, are you relying upon the prayer or who you're praying to? See, that make me mad. Well, today it doesn't.
I was this dimension of existence of which we had not even dreamed. It's really interesting, that statement, because I remember years ago sitting on a park bench with my drinking buddy of 20 some odd years, and I was looking down at these ants crawling along this crack, and I looked at him and I said, you know what? I wonder if I'll ever get back to where something as simple as that means as much to me as it did when I was a kid. And then we both agreed that we needed to quit drinking. And then we had another beer and toasted to it.
That's a wonderful story.
And there came a point shortly after that I stopped dreaming that I would return to that simplicity. I just gave up. I didn't have that in my sights anymore. The life of active alcoholism was so intense that even the thought of being in a different dimension of existence than I was then had gone. It had left me. But it came back. But it didn't come back just because I walked into a room with 25 people and sat down and listened to everybody talk about their day. That's not what happened. Somebody came alongside of me and walked this step process with me, and the light began to come on again, So I guess what I'm saying is, if you're out there and you're listening to this show and you don't think there's any hope, and you just say, I've gone too far, don't believe that lie. Because, first of all, if you're listening to the show and that's where you're at, there's a reason why you're listening. And this possibly could be a process of you returning to some form of sanity. Remember, we talked about being returned to sanity, not sobriety. Sobriety's got to come first, though. We got to get this stuff out of our bodies before we can start thinking clearly.
Sometimes we don't want to tell people the truth, and what we're talking about here is step one. You notice how a lot of the promises are. And especially the one I talked about, was, you're going to drink again. if we don't tell them the truth and the nature of this illness and the nature of the spiritual disease, well, then what are we doing to help them? On page 24, it talks about the problem in a couple places, really profound, okay?
Mm-hmm.
That you will drink again, and that there is a complete failure and defense, from one putting his hand on a hot stove. And then it goes on to say, when this sort of thinking is fully established, we have placed ourselves beyond human aid.
Right.
These sort of things. And yet, when a guy comes into Alcoholics Anonymous, he's mad at God, right? He don't want to hear about anything other than fellowship.
Right.
You see?
Bet. You bet.
But then it goes on to talk about, this solution and what it has. And if you have that, both elements, the problem and the solution, see, so you know the problem and you have a solution to apply it to, it becomes a wonderment. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And it just boggles your mind to how this has taken place. Monty, the thing that I've recovered from, and I honestly and truthfully believe, I haven't wanted to drink or use for years. Now, that's a miracle. I mean, I used to wake up.
But you've thought about it.
Yes, I have thought about it. Oh, you bet. But, I mean, I haven't had the obsession.
You haven't had the obsession.
It quick as that thought goes into my mind, it goes out. And so I haven't wanted to, and I've lived with an alcoholic for quite a while. And I'm telling you, to put me in a position like that when I didn't have Christ in my life it'd have been a death sentence for me. It really, really would have, because I don't think I could have been able to battle that fact that somebody else is drinking and I'm not going to drink. You see what I mean?
Do you guys
it used to make me mad?
Yeah. I know it did. Do you think? Let me ask Marv first. Do you think that sometimes we focus a lot on the malady and not the solution? And let me give you an example. Hi, I'm Monty, I'm an alcoholic. Instead of, hi, I'm Monty, I'm a recovered alcoholic. And I know different parts of the country, there's different patterns. And, I don't want to argue semantics. But the big book would suggest, in fact, there's some place in there where it actually says we're to refer to ourselves as recovered. But it's almost like I've got to shout from the mountaintops that I'm sick, sick, sick. And although I know that's important, and I know that we need to realize you can't fix what you don't acknowledge, obviously. But I think sometimes we forget that we have a common solution as well, not just a common malady. What do you think, Marv?
Well, I was thinking back while you were asking me this question when I first came into AA.
Uh-huh.
And first of all, I didn't want to believe I was alcoholic. I thought I was different, better.
Mm-hmm.
I'm an individual. I think for myself. I'm not going to fall into this trap with this group, okay?
You're not a bandwagon guy.
Right.
Yeah.
And so people come in there, and I honestly don't know why I kept going back, except in my mind I was thinking to myself, there's something here, and I need it. And that was it. I didn't think about there is a solution or spiritual. Actually, I did think about spiritual stuff, but I don't think a lot of people, when they come in there, first of all, a lot of them don't want to be there.
Sure.
And I think they have they come in there and sit down and they think to themselves, if they're anything like I was, you know what? I'm worthless. What am I doing? I don't believe any of this stuff.
Mm-hmm.
These people are nuts.
Mm-hmm.
And it was by the grace of God that kept me going back. It really was. And then that idea, you know what? I got to change my way of thinking. I don't know. Anyway.
That is one thing I heard a lot when I first came in.
Oh, and I wanted to say one other thing. When we got down to sentence 4, 5, and 6,
mm-hmm.
one of the things I thought of, maybe I'm way off base, but it really reminded me of chapter 11 in Hebrews, the faith chapter. Most of those old-timers, patriarchs and stuff, did not see the results of their faith.
Very true.
And
very true.
And that's what this process of being in recovery reminds me of.
Mm.
Somehow or another, somewhere along the line, each of us at a different point in time gets that mustard seed of faith, and it helps us to keep coming back.
Good point.
So
really good point. Good point. Bruce?
I definitely think that people are looking too much at the problem and not enough at the solution. I think the solution has been so watered down that people don't want to look at it, or they've talked or made it undesirable.
Interesting. My friend Dick B says, when did we go from keep it simple to keep them sick?
So I
miss those old timers. I wasn't in AA a couple of weeks, and this guy walks up to me and he's shaking his finger in my face, and he says, "You can't fool me any, Ramsey. I know you're an alcoholic." You talk about resentment. And he turned out to be a good friend of mine.
Yeah.
But, I agree with Bruce. It's a lot has been watered down.
Yeah.
Well, number 7 here, and this man, this packs a punch. This really is a powerful statement. It says, the great fact is just this. Just that introduction to what's coming up has got me paying attention. The great fact is just this, and nothing less, that we have had deep and effective spiritual experiences which have revolutionized our whole attitude towards life, toward our fellows, and toward God's universe. Wow, that's talking about change, isn't it? You're talking about changing your way of thinking.
Yeah.
That's amazing.
I think, too, that the thing that makes me so dogmatic about things is I believe that this deep and effective spiritual experience was a result of taking this path. You know what I mean? The spiritual experience they're talking about is that the steps. Now, the steps aren't the spiritual experience. The steps are the path to the spiritual experience.
True. Yeah.
See, that's that. I have to make that clear, and then put it another way: the steps aren't the power; the steps are a path to the power.
Yeah,
this clears the path and humbles us and places us into a position to go to God with an entirely different attitude. These spiritual principles, a spiritual set of tools, if you will, whatever they call them. I think it all fits into that realm, that it's headed towards that, and so you take these spiritual principles and you apply them in your life, and it'll place you in a position that you can go to God with a contrite heart. And I think that's God working for us. Yes.
Observation.
The power of observation. And what I notice, it says spiritual experiences, plural. And that's why I say the power of observation. Sometime or another, I don't know exactly when, it dawned on me to really pay attention to what's going on around me. And another thing that dawned on me is to look for God's work in other people's lives. And don't ask me why, because I'm a thick-headed Irishman. And excuse me. Boy, it's right on the money. My whole attitude, well, 98%, in life has changed, and it's been because of spiritual experiences.
Right.
Not only that I have experienced, but in observation of what's going on with the people around me.
Yeah.
How God opens doors.
Yeah.
Yeah, it is. I do have to agree with you on that, to watch other people and to see them grow. Oh, that's just absolutely something you don't want to miss.
We've been talking about some of the promises in step 1 associated with step 1. Number 8 here, and Bill does it again. He's repeating himself using different words. He just said the great fact is just this. Now he says the central fact of our lives today. He's making an emphasis on what is really going on. He says the central fact of our lives today is the absolute certainty. Boy, now that's a bold statement. The absolute certainty. If we put it another way and we said, I don't think, I don't have the opinion of, I know. Some people would get in our face and they go, well, that's your opinion. No, I know. And he says this here, is the absolute certainty that our Creator has entered into our hearts and lives in a way which is indeed miraculous. Wow, what a promise. That amazes me.
See, I'll say this, and I've said it in the rooms because I just don't understand this. When this sort of thing takes place in your life,
yeah,
you start to stop giving yourself the credit for it.
Or your sponsor.
Or your sponsor.
My sponsor told me this. My sponsor told me that. Or I. Yeah.
It goes on, and I hope we read the last one on this page at 164 before the end of the show. But I'm telling you that when I realized who I was and what I couldn't do, that I couldn't get rid of this selfishness and self-centeredness, that I needed his help, and then he started to aid me in that process. Not that it's God, but he started to help me.
Yeah,
that was miraculous.
Yeah,
that was a wonderful thing, and I stopped saying Bruce did this and Bruce did that. You know, it started glorifying him, and now I think what it's like Barb was talking about. Now I'm trying to do that in my everyday life and in my conduct, the way I carry myself. And here I am. It's a bad conduct the last couple of days. It's amazing.
You're having spiritual experiences.
Yeah. Oh, gosh.
Number 9, and then we will go down to the last one. Number 9, he has commenced to accomplish those things for us which we could never do by ourselves. Now, see here, this is the part where we've gone from active alcoholism or addiction or whatever it may be that you're dealing with, being about powerlessness to being about power. His power. And I just love that. I it was years before anybody ever told me that this thing was about power. I just was pointing it in the wrong direction because I thought I had power. But yeah, let's talk about the last one on this page. Still you may say, it reads, this is page 164 in the big book, but I will not have the benefit of contact with you who wrote this book. We cannot be sure. God will determine that. So you must remember that your real reliance is always upon Him. He will show you how to create the fellowship you crave. So my interpretation of that is the reader might be saying, well, that's fine and good for you guys. I wasn't there. And I can't experience it like you can. Well, he says God will determine that. You must remember that your real reliance is always upon Him.
Well, I'll give you a really prime example of what I think that we're talking about here with all these promises and the root cause of this thing, and all the way from solving this drink problem down. I think this ties it in. Is that God is going to determine that, and He'll show me how to have the kind of relationships that I've always craved. There's another way of saying it.
Mm-hmm.
So I wouldn't be sitting here in this room with you and Amani and with you if it wasn't for God in my life. I believe that He has opened the door for me to have a relationship with you, and it's the kind of relationship I've craved all my life. Look at my friend Rick Fry.
Mm-hmm.
Now, there's a relationship that I've developed in Alcoholics Anonymous because of my relationship with God.
Yeah.
He's showing me how to have those kind of relationships. He's taught that to me. So he's done all these things on this page and showing me how to have this fellowship that I think Marv was talking about right from the jump.
Mm-hmm.
You know?
Mm-hmm.
And so I can see that, see the importance, but I believe that He's gave me that to do that. That's what He's saying here. He says, we cannot be sure. God will determine that. Now, this is where He goes. So you must remember that your real reliance is on Him. He will show you how to create the fellowship you crave. He will.
Yeah. Yeah. Not your sponsor, not your best buddy.
He will show me how to care.
He'll do it.
You know what I mean? And that's by for the very first time in my life, and then I'll shut up and let Marv have this, is to...
I don't want it.
I've been afforded the opportunity for the first time in my life, Marv, to take an honest look at an appraisal at myself, and I didn't like what I seen. I didn't like it. And so I went to God with a different heart because of that and asked Him for help. And He came. That's all I can say. I don't know why He does in one person's life, why He doesn't in another. But I know I'm not going to take credit for that. It's not going to happen.
Let's look at these last two really quick. I'm just going to read these. Our book is meant to be suggestive only. This is the next page. Remember, again, this is not a book of suggestions. This is a suggested program. We realize we know only a little. And he's talking about those first folks. God will constantly disclose more to you and to us. Ask Him in your morning meditation. Here's a directive. Ask Him in your morning meditation what you can do each day for the man who is still sick. The answer will come. Wow, that's cool. That's a great promise. If it's conditional, your own house is in order. Reminds me of that scripture verse about, taking the log out of your brother's eye, or the splinter out of your brother's eye when you haven't taken the log out of yours, that kind of thing. It doesn't say not to help your brother remove that. What it is saying is make sure your house is in order first. And so that's what it says. But obviously you cannot transmit something you haven't got. See to it that your relationship with Him is right, and great events will come to pass for you and countless others. Great events will come to pass. Wow.
Where's the if now?
Yeah.
Say, it's if your relationship with Him.
Yeah.
You see what I mean? And that's the way it is back before that, too. It's conditional upon your relationship with Him.
It is.
With God.
It is.
Okay? We have to learn to stop putting ourselves first and put Him first.
We shall be with you in the fellowship of the Spirit, and you will surely meet some of us as you trudge the road to happy destiny. The fellowship of the Spirit, not the spirit of the fellowship, and they're both very real. A lot of times people get them confused. The fellowship of what Spirit? Of God's Spirit. The fellowship of His Spirit. And then it talks about, trudging, and we've talked about before, that's kind of in a chuckly way what that really means. Walking with purpose. Some people don't like that word trudge. It's not negative. It sounds negative, though, doesn't it? Trudge.
I've done a lot of that.
And so these are some of the promises associated with the first step. Next week, we'll talk about promises associated with step 2. If you've got some ideas or you have some experiences, some promises that have come true in your life as a result of step 1, basically recognizing that you're powerless, that your life has become unmanageable, and as a result of that declaration, you have come to experience something that you've never experienced before, please let us know. Our email address is take12radio@comcast.net. Any closing thoughts from you guys?
Have you noticed in the book when we're reading and it gives us all this hopelessness and that we're going to drink again and we've lost the power of choice when it comes to alcohol, all of this stuff that they're just devastating, that always right behind it there comes a message of hope.
Yeah.
He doesn't just
leave you there.
Just leave you there.
Right.
And I think that's what we're missing in the rooms, is that it's what it was like, and what it was like.
Oh.
And so we have all that. And I understand that, and I understand that there's new people that come in, but I think there should be a element of what it was like, what you did, and what it's like now.
Marv, any closing thoughts?
No.
Hey.
I just thank you for having me. It's an honor to be here.
Oh,
I like you guys.
We like you too.
Remember this: no foot, no horse.
Yeah, I'm not. Yeah, you can't get out of town without a horse. That's right.
All right. Well, there you have it. Listen, if you want to listen to these shows, the promises of each one of these steps in their entirety before they were edited, get the public service announcements and the Take 12 trivia and all the fun stuff that we do, simply go to take12radio.com, scroll down and click on Recovery Workshops, and then click on the 12-step promises, and you can download and you can listen to all of the shows on the promises of each step in their entirety, as far as all the stuff goes, unedited. These are going to be produced for you, so you're just focusing on the topic itself. All right, until next time, this is the Monty Man reminding you that we are now on iHeart Radio, we are on iTunes, we are on WordPress, we are on Google+, we are on Twitter. Well, just the list goes on and on. Visit us at take12radio.com. You can download our app from Podomatic and take us with you on the go. And, well, there you go. So until next time, we are wishing God's perfect serenity for you. Bye-bye now.
This has been a broadcast of KHLT Recovery Broadcasting.
Kitty, 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 kitty.